Okay, so I want to talk about the power of healing out loud. I have always been somebody who has struggled with my mental health, and honestly, at a lot of times, my physical health as well. And throughout my journey, especially when I was younger, I liked to keep it quiet. I didn't let people know about what was going on in my head and just how bad my mental health had gotten. And it was very lonely and isolating. And it got to the point where, after, a little bit too much wine, I had a full blown breakdown in front of a very close friend. And she was like, "Girl, you are not okay. And you need help." And that was kind of one of those turning point moments for me where I was like, I cannot keep this inside anymore. I need to talk about it. I need to not feel so alone and isolated in my struggles. And at that point in my life, a therapist was not something that was available to me. Unfortunately, most therapists are not free, which is really, really kind of sucky. And so it was a lot of working through things by myself. But in sharing my experiences and getting more and more comfortable talking openly, even if it was only to friends and family, about what I was going through, not only did that help me feel less alone, but it let the people in my life understand me better. It helped them to help me better, because eventually we figured out what was needed. And I think one of the most important things that healing out loud publicly helped with was not just me, but the people around me. Because the hard reality is, when you're struggling with mental health, as isolating and lonely as it can feel, you're not the only person struggling with that. Kind of double-edged sword of, like, really sucky that you're struggling, but also, like, you're not alone in it. And as I got more open talking about it, as I got more open talking about my physical health issues too, like back in 2020, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks straight with some not fun physical issues. And through that whole journey, I talked about it a lot openly with my family too. It's what I was going through, what I was feeling mentally, what my physical capabilities or non-capabilities were at that time. And I think a moment that really sticks out for me is, in all of this, my grandma, because she had said to me at one point, "Thank you. Thank you for talking about this. Thank you for sharing this." My grandma, who is turning 90 this year in like a couple weeks, is from a generation where you don't talk about what is going wrong. You don't talk about your mental health. If you're struggling, you hide that because you can't let anybody know. You don't talk about your physical health because that's a private issue. So when she would struggle with things medically, nobody in the family would know because she would stay quiet and not share. And so through me explaining everything I was going through, talking about my mental health, talking about my physical health, talking about the struggles, she actually had come to me and thanked me, because for her, that acted almost like a permission slip to talk about it. She saw the support I received. She felt that sympathy. She was able to understand more what was going on. And she took from that, if I'm more open about this, if I talk more about this, I can also get the support I need in this moment. I don't have to feel so alone and isolated in my struggles, in my, physical issues. And that was a changing point. People will talk about how healing, going into shadow work from a spiritual perspective, witchy perspective, not just heals you, but it heals both future generations and past generations. And that was really driven home by the fact that my grandma, who is 90, is born in a generation where you don't talk. felt comfortable starting to talk. And that likely would not have happened if I hadn't healed out loud. Or it might have happened to a degree, but not a lot. And I'm glad that she took that. She took that lesson. She took that piece. Now, I will say not everybody is a safe person. Some people you can't talk about these things with. And that's kind of really shitty, honestly. But knowing who you can be safe with, whether it's going online and talking about your struggles, to help others feel seen and heard. That's one of my personal goals, to talk to people who you are close with, who actually do understand you. It can just make such a big difference, both in your life and in others. And, that's how we heal the world to an extent. It's how we heal ourselves. It's how we gather and grow and heal as a community, as a people, as, your little villages. Talking about what you are going through helps you not feel so alone. So whether you start with one person, whether you start with a small detail, if you're one of those people who don't talk a lot about it, it really, really can make a difference. And that's just kind of what I want that take home to be, is I want to create that impact in the world. I want people to feel less alone, less isolated in their physical issues or like struggles, illnesses, their mental health, and even in their shadow work, because again, shadow work can be a very, very isolating thing too. When all these old traumas and wounds pop up, sometimes we're ready to deal with that and sometimes we're not. But when we share that, the weight of it is not just ours to hold. Sharing that can look like so many different things. You could go post anonymously somewhere and say, this is what I'm struggling with. You can write it down. You can, journal even. Whether you're talking to somebody close, whether you're talking to somebody, an online friend, I've never met any of my besties in person, but we have those deep conversations where we're talking about what we're actually struggling with. And also in doing that, you can get advice and tips, because, bringing it back to what you're going through, you're not the only person who's gone through that. In almost every single case, obviously there are some cases, but when you can share that and be open, and you wind up talking to somebody who has had that experience, they might have some tips or advice or just ways to hold space for you so that you feel less alone, that you understand that other people have gone through this. And that's really just the power of healing out loud. It's not easy, it can be scary, especially if it's new and unfamiliar, but it really can make a difference. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and I am grateful that you exist. I would love to hear in the comments if this resonated, and if it did, also please subscribe. Thank you. Bye.